Morning, guys.
Morning, mate.
How you doing?
I'm okay. How about you?
Yeah, pretty good, mate. Pretty good.
That's the shot. How's everyone else in the wonderful world of YouTube, on Facebook, Twitter, and any other social media thing that they haven't even thought of yet that I don't know anything about? But there's bound to be a few coming up, I got to say.
Oh yeah, it's
How,
a bit like cryptocurrencies, isn't it?
how was your weekend, mate?
It was good actually. You know what? I think we're getting for another lockdown, so we're kind of not that we kind of rushed to get out. We had plans to go and see some people anyway, and there was plenty of distancing going on. You know, we're actually some of the better in the community at respecting what's going on. So we kind of met people in parks and stuff and kept away from them. But I had a pretty decent weekend of seeing some people. But it looks like there's a lockdown on its way in the UK. Who knows what kind of lockdown we're going to get? If it's the schools, then everybody's back in trouble because obviously
Yeah.
nobody can do anything if schools are off. So yeah, it's a bit bleak out there in some respects, mate, and obviously winter's coming as well. We got a bit of a all seasons in 1 week apparently this week. It's been but like fairly decent heat over here this weekend, but I think
Is
this week
it?
is going to drop by about 10 degrees, which is pretty extreme, you know, to drop by 10 degrees in a week.
Yeah, seasonal changes are pretty much like that, aren't they? Bit fluky, the weather, and same here.
Yeah.
We've got 5 minutes before the open of UK session. As always, we're in here 5 minutes before that. We will set the pound US dollar breakout trade very shortly. At the moment, they're pretty much going to be the range is the candle, and we are going to be trading long at 1.2967 at this stage, unless we get a higher spike, and our stop loss will be 1.2936, and the reverse will apply for the short. So I can't place that yet because that candle's a little bit close to the top. I think I can certainly well, no, I can't certainly do anything. I would be pretty confident that we'll be selling at 1.2936, but again, we can't put that in place until it happens. In the meantime, why don't we have a look at what's coming up for the week in terms of news events? And
Yeah, lots of central banks this week.
yeah, and speeches, mate. I think we're
Yep.
probably going to be a little bit volatile around these speeches because anything could happen. Of course, they'll be going either way,
Yeah,
depending
agreed.
on which speaker's prepared to say what, and if they're going to be absolutely upfront from the outset. I don't know what this thing is. Is this a new thing? The rule making for the Community Reinvestment Act. Have you heard of it?
I don't know. I don't know myself. Is there? Yeah, I don't know myself, mate. I don't know myself.
So the whole board is up for speeches, apparently.
Yeah, well, they are. The whole board is up, and actually we've got Bailey out tomorrow as well. I think there might be an ECB one as well on Wednesday. I think there's quite a few of the central bankers due to make some speeches.
Yeah, well, there's testimonies as well. Of course, the various committees in the US government will be holding testimonies from Powell, and
mm,
this one is the Financial Services Committee. I don't know what else we got. Does it really matter? He's testifying anyway.
yeah.
There'll be a Senate committee and there'll be a subcommittee and all those sorts of things. So, yeah, we're going to see a fair bit of chit chat over the week, one would think. I don't know what expectations you have for the market, mate. Have you got any?
Um, I'm still very keen on the dollar as a story for a
Mm.
long. Um, it does, I'm still keen on the cryptocurrency story going short, but that's it's holding on actually pretty well so far. But I'm sticking with my position on that one. I'm not giving up on that. If I am long dollar, then it does mean that my belief is that gold is coming down, silver's coming down, cryptos are coming down. Euro dollar continues to hold on, but I believe that's coming down. The Swissie's coming down. Pound, I'm less sure about in some respects. Maybe that'd be the least well, don't know if it'd be the least affected, but ultimately, as a long dollar, it means that the basket of everything else against the dollar, as it is anyway, will devalue. The question is, which will devalue the most? Now, I still think that the cryptocurrencies have probably got a fair journey to come down, but they might manage to hold on. It depends a lot on the tone of these speeches for sure. And as far as I'm aware, that there might be some discussion about the yield curve in there. I don't know if you've seen the banking story, but the banks have been absolutely obliterated. HSBC down 50%, I believe, on the year, but they've been absolutely obliterated, and they're probably going to get caned this morning because they've been caught in a scandal where they were allowing scams to move money around the globe, scamming people, and then effectively, scamming them maybe in the States, and then moving money to the Chinese arm of of HSBC. So utilizing their international status for nefarious means.
Oh, dear me, wouldn't happen.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Mate,
it's pretty serious, mate.
We'll place this order in case it takes off, and we'll come back to that because it sounds like it's an interesting scenario. Okay, so the long is buy at 1.2967 with the stop loss at 1.2936. TP1 is going to be at 1.2982, and TP2 is going to be at 1.3029. Now at TP1, what we do is take half off the table and move our stop loss the same amount of pips that we took as TP1. We, in this case, because we're buying, will be below entry. So what have we got? 15 pips we're taking at TP1. We'll move our stops 15 pips below entry, which will be 1.2956. That's where your stop loss will move to at TP1. What you do at TP2 is pretty much up to you. You have a few choices there, obviously. You could move your stops to entry and take no profit and just let it run. You could take some more profit off the table and move your stops to entry. I would counsel that you move your stops to entry regardless of what you do. But at TP2, it's pretty much up to you what you choose. I better place this order, otherwise I won't be in the game if it triggers. So 1.2967, very, very close to last. When was I in last? Thursday? I think so, yes. Only 1 pip difference. Amazing. Stop loss 1.2936. And that's the long of it. The short of it is 1.2936, of course. And the stop loss is 1.2967. Okay, so they're placed. And again, for those of you joining us for the first time, welcome. Firstly, secondly, what we're attempting to do here is catch the breakout of the pre-London session 3 hourly candles. Now, in this case, the last candle is indeed the range of the last 3 candles. And, pardon me, normally, well, not normally, sometimes that is the case. But if either one of these previous 2 bars to the one that's just closed were to be higher or lower, then we would use the high and the low of the range of the 3 bars rather than just 1 candle. So once we are in the long, if that is triggered, we would cancel the short and vice versa. And as I said, your TP1, the rule that we're using at the moment, and I stress that we are in beta test mode here, this is not a proven strategy or system. So please be aware of that. If you are thinking of trading this, do not trade this at anywhere near full risk, because it is not, as I say, a proven system. We are knocking it into shape as we go. Once you hit TP1, as I said before, whatever you take at TP1, in this case, it'll be 15 pips. you will need to move your stop loss if you are buying 15 pips below the entry and take 55 or 50% of the trade off the table. So in other words, bank 50%. That will give you a free trade and nothing can harm you after that. TP2 level, which is double the risk, you can then take a second profit or definitely move your stops to entry. We'll just leave that management up to you guys. And it'll be exactly the same going the opposite direction. Now, I don't think I've calculated TP1 and 2 on this, so I better do that. So just so you know, again, we've got 31 pips of stop loss. So we'll use 15 pips of TP1, and that will be at 1.2921 if we're using 15 pips. 1.2921, and TP2 will be double the stop loss, which in this case is 31 times 2 or 62, and 62 below there would be 1.2974. Last time I went to, well, sorry, 1.2874. So only 1 pip away from last Thursday. All right, so they're the parameters that you should be using if you're following this trade. Again, it is in beta test mode. Do not trade this with any major risk on the table. Righto, we will upgrade or update that as the day goes on, but don't forget to take your TP1 if you get triggered at either of those levels, be it long or short. Right, mate. So I guess back to where you were and the expectations for the week. Those of you who are new to the program, I'm primarily in fact, I'm only a currency trader. That's all I do, and concentrate pretty much on the majors and the minors rather than exotics. But we do have a little bit of a look around the place as well. On a Monday, I very seldom have a firm fixed opinion, but I do on a few currencies that we have pre-analyzed because we have a Sunday show that is all about market analysis. And therefore, I have 4 opinions going into today, but that will obviously change as we investigate more charts and go through the process, which is pretty much the same each and every Monday. And we'll take you through that if time permits. Ash, on the other hand, a bit more versatile than myself and keeps an eye on a lot of different things, including indices, Bitcoin, foreign exchange, flies up a wall, go-kart races, just about anything you care. What's on your mind, mate? You did start to tell me.
Well, yeah, I mean, HSBC absolutely on my mind. The FTSE 100 has opened up with only 3 stocks actually pushing into positive territory. So we're 97% to the downside this morning so far. But as I say, HSBC really is probably the most interesting story over the weekend. It's just dropping again. Let me just double check some of these numbers here.
True, Dennis. Bamboo stuff. That's true. Sorry, mate.
Yeah, I mean it's down almost 50% from the open of the year, and as I say, that it's one of those things that whenever you look at this stuff, whenever I look at any stocks, the first thing that you've got to ascertain, obviously, is does the fundamental picture meet with your meet with your judgment, meet with your analysis. But when stocks are so cheap, there's always a temptation just to kind of take a punt on this stuff. And I'll show you some of these, but it just goes to show that the importance of kind of knowing your market and knowing what's going on. Just bringing up a chart of the Nasdaq here, but if we go to TradingView, and I still like travel stocks. I still think that there's value to be had with travel stocks, but the timing is going to be the big thing. And I just I don't think that there's going to be any point in leaving money with a broker or with a broker for many months potentially, as the story and the situation has to change. Now let me just see if I've got an HSBC chart here. Here we go. This is the chart of HSBC, and I'm going to make sure that it's clean enough to view. Probably better to look at this on a weekly, just to kind of get rid of some of the gaps here. But look at the price of HSBC and look at it fall again, you know, and when it's down here at around about 21. In actual fact, if we bring in price action from, and this is really case in point of what I'm talking about. What can I do anything with this chart? Here we go. Look at the price right back in 1996. So when it gets down to 22, when it gets down to this level here, I get quite interested in HSBC and think, okay, well, you know, it's bounced here in 2009 at the low of the financial crisis, and bearing in mind that is very specific to banks, and you know, pretty much where it opens up in 1995, we're back down to that particular price. But look at it go now. It is still pushing lower and lower and lower. Now, I don't know exactly what the message is here. Now, HSBC is in a specific amount of trouble when it comes down to its own personal story, and really the personal story on HSBC is about, as I say, I was just telling you about these scams that have been moving money through HSBC. And I'm talking about, you know, millions of pounds of scam cash that they've been managing to move through the bank, and it appeared that the bank knew about it. Now I don't know why they didn't do anything about it, whether they're getting some kickback or not, but they are being investigated, it doesn't bode well. Now HSBC is in all sorts of trouble, really, because it seems that they are in all the worst markets for exposure. You know, they're exposed to the financial market, which obviously during this time of COVID and you know, continued central bank devaluing of you know, just about every currency on the planet, that affects all the banks. But also HSBC are heavily exposed to Hong Kong. So you know, at a point in history where Hong Kong is potentially in one of the top 5 areas of contention on the globe. So they were already in trouble, and then we get this story about them, and all of a sudden, you know, HSBC just continues to fall. And really, this is just an illustration of the fact that just when you think that something is too cheap, look again, and look again at what may well move it, because if you've got a stock which is caught in some kind of scandal like this, or some sort of profit warning, or you know, any of these things, then you know, too cheap is not too cheap. And actually HSBC looks like it's who knows where it could go. From here, it's through those important levels. HSBC at this point is one of those candidates that actually could go to zero. I doubt it will, but you know, it's still a very, very important player. But if banks generally, if retail banks are generally going to suffer, you know, if we do embrace this DeFi environment, then you'd think that the retail banks would be ones that suffer. Now, obviously, HSBC do have other arms in other areas of banking that may well save them, but you certainly would not want to you know, try and trade this on a potential level here. Now let's compare that to EasyJet, because EasyJet are another.
Before you go,
yeah.
It was very remiss of me earlier not to introduce the wonderful Angel to our show.
Oh yeah,
this week, guys. Angel's on board to keep Ash and myself honest with these questions, and she's doing a wonderful job so far.
Yeah, brilliant job.
Welcome aboard. And if you post a question just about anywhere, Angel will field it and pass it on to us. So we shouldn't be missing any of your questions. And I will try and catch up with a couple right now. One to you, Ash, from Dennis, and Kenneth, a very quick one from you. What site did I use for the economic calendar? It is called forexfactory.com. So forexfactory.com.
Yeah, and I'll show you that. So you look in here. In actual fact, I'm not sure whether Angel can post that in the chat box on YouTube, but there it is. Don't worry about the closed part of it. You want forexfactory.com, and then you are looking at the calendar. You're looking at the calendar here. And that brings up all your data points. And you can, there's little filters over here as well that you can choose which currency that you want to focus on. You can choose which area of the currency you want to focus on, and you can choose how important that particular news is. Red being the most important, grey being generally bank holidays, I think, are in grey. So actually, wow, it's worth leaving it up. Yeah, so really useful tool, and there are a few that I would recommend when it comes down to looking at financial websites, and two others that I would straight away recommend you guys have on your. There are many, but what you're trying to look for is free data, not have to pay subscriptions to people, because when it comes down to looking at free data, then you can find exactly what you need, or when it comes down to buying into, what somebody might be selling you, you can usually find what they are selling you with free data online. But the thing that they will obviously that they are doing is taking that free data and doing something with it. So you can actually action it and use it. So two other websites that I would straight away recommend to you would be, look at Yahoo Finance. And that's probably .com, but just put that into Google and you'll find it.
It is.
And the other one is .com. Okay, so that's .com. And investing. .com as well. And these aren't, these aren't charts reading things. These are purely data points. You just want them for data, and you can find just about everything that you need. Not everything, but just about.
You had the wrong font on the F there too, mate.
There you go. So Yahoo Finance and investing.com. Okay, so they are those. Now, what was the question from Jeff? Have a look at the possible shorts in the Euro Aussie and the Euro CAD, both H1. I guess you're doing that in the background.
Yep.
Yeah. From Dennis Ash, is the third month. Oh yeah. Is there any hope of that happening today? Your thoughts? Yes, indeedy, Dennis. Okay. Do you know what I've got to say? Of course I've got to say. Otherwise, what am I doing here? I think it's almost a better time than any to be trading the S&P for a long, because if you think, now I've just been talking about the something not being nothing can ever be too cheap, which is the point. These are whenever we look at charts as analysts, we're always looking to buy low, sell high, which means that we're looking for buy zones and sell zones effectively. Now, this obviously, when you look at down here, for starters, is a buy zone. Okay, because it's at a level of support. So a level of support by definition is a buy zone. In fact, a level of support by definition is a potential buy zone. And here's the level of support. So when we're looking at levels of support, the rule of thumb obviously is that we want price action to have bounced away fairly significantly, not just come straight back down again. Now, it's bounced away from here twice. Now, it hasn't quite touched this level down here of breakout, which I would prefer. If this had bounced down here, it'd be a much better level, because it was resistance, and then it becomes support. So there's a chance that the S&P still comes down to this low here before bouncing. However, there has already been some proof. Now, it depends whether you trust the tails or whether you trust the lows. Now, if we trust the tails, we get a slightly different message. The tails actually suggest that this was an area of resistance within this resistance zone, and that area was the area of support. And again, it's become an area of support just a little bit. On Friday, it became an area of support. So this looks like another area of support. So technically speaking, the S&P looks pretty good as a potential third Monday of the month buy. That's the first thing. The second thing is, we were just talking about, things can't be too cheap. So even a buy zone can become a sell zone, if you like. Obviously, we want the breakout and retracement. However, you will look for the driver for HSBC If we use this this as an example, have I lost that chart? I've lost my chart. No, I haven't. The driver for HSBC to be stepping lower is still in place, and there's a new driver, and the new driver is the story about HSBC moving money. In fact, so HSBC allowing fraudsters to transfer millions of dollars around the world, even after it had learned of their scam. So who wants to be banking with somebody who allows that to happen, when they are aware? Well, nobody wants to be banking with them. Very few people would be banking with them. And of course, that's going to affect their profit levels. And of course, that means that shareholders are going to go, I'm never going to get a return on this stock. Technically speaking, this is the price at 22.89 or 22.90. But fundamentally speaking, this is still a really dirty stock. So I don't want to be involved in it. So there is a driver to the downside here. Now, what's the driver in the S&P to the downside today? Is the news that we've had to this point likely to continue? Well, doesn't look like it. Looks quite slow. Now, also, if we think about what potential drivers could be, then we would go back to Forex Factory and we say, okay, well, what's Forex Factory suggesting? Is there anything on the horizon that could move the S&P today in my favor or against me? And of course there is, because you've got the Fed chair out at 3:30, which is half an hour after the US Open, but that's a little while to wait just yet. And we don't know what he's going to say. We haven't got a clue what he's going to say. So the trade would carry some element of danger, but and it would be a shame really with the S&P, because you would have bought on the open to sell on the close, and the open up here is it's already down almost 1% from the opening of this bar. But if you haven't got in yet, I think a much more interesting trade would be one of two. Getting in somewhere in this area would be the first area of interest with the S&P, and probably the favored point. So anywhere between this point and the other lower line would be there. And the reason for that is that it's unlikely to break through before Jerome Powell. So you're much more likely to get some kind of bounce into that release, because we are at a low already, and it's unlikely to stick around here for the next 5 or 6 hours. So we'd like to get a bit of a bounce, or you wait for the genuine S&P to open, the actual S&P to open. Because the interesting thing about the S&P strategy is that we do take it on this kind of CFD, I guess, maybe futures cross. I don't know how they kind of calculate the numbers from the US 500 on these. But the interesting thing about the study that has been done is actually on the S&P itself. So if you are able to stay awake, I don't know what time that would be in Singapore time. What's that? 4, 5, 6 hours in 6 hours time. So it's only gonna be 9:30. So 9:30 Singapore time. It would be interesting to maybe then potentially take a trade. But as I say, you do have two choices. The good thing about this, this particular way of trading the S&P, this US 500, is that you can take it when price gets to a really attractive point, and this is a buy zone. These two areas are really, really good buy zones. And as I say, it's unlikely to get down here before Jerome Powell is to speak. So you've got something that could work in your favor, potentially creating some kind of bounce to the upside. Whether it makes money after that is anyone's guess, as always.
Had you taken that, would you not be out now? Isn't it 25?
Oh, good point.
Loss?
Good point.
And if so, would you now consider entering now? Not our strategy. It's certainly not my strategy. I've never traded it, but
do you know, mate? Yes, you would. You're absolutely right. You would be taken out now. I wouldn't take it again, because it's a different strategy entirely. So now the work would have to be done in a different way. And the way that I would now do the work is to look for this bottoming out. Now at this stage, it's not happening on the hourly. It's not happening on the 15. But what we do have there And actually, this is quite a good exercise in what would you need to see here to kind of get you into a trade, and it'd be simple. You just you're looking on a big time frame here on the daily chart, and to be able to get some kind of entry off an hourly would be brilliant. But it looks like the likely entry is probably more likely to be off the 15. So you'd want to see the 15 break to the upside, which it looked like it had done there. So obviously that now means that the tail here, or the not the tail, the wick is the important thing. So a price break above 33.12, 33.13, and then a retest of this particular area would be of interest on the S&P. Otherwise, no. And I'll tell you what, the FTSE continues to fall quite aggressively this morning. Look at the FTSE go. This
on fire too.
Yeah, it really is. So that's the opening bar. Geez, the FTSE. I know it's not down quite as much as I thought, but it is down 1%, 1.5% so far since the open. So we're only 25 minutes in, and the FTSE is dropping.
We're going to risk off big time by the look of it.
Yeah, we are going to risk off big time, but let's have a look. So that's the FTSE on the daily so far. S&P is less. Doesn't have quite the same aggressive price action to the downside. Let's check across the board. There's the Dow. There is the Nasdaq. That is the Nikkei. This is the DAX. Oh, God, the DAX is having a few problems, isn't it, mate? There's the, of course. Whoa, yeah, okay. My point was about to be that maybe the FTSE was the worst performer, but I can tell you for right now, I mean, this is obviously a seller's market. You've got the FTSE 100 currently down in territories of 2%. So 98% of the stocks in the FTSE 100 are all lower this morning. You go to the DAX, and there is 99% of stocks are moving to the downside. And in actual fact, the only one that isn't moving to the downside is dead flat. So nothing is looking too positive there. CAC are on 100% of stocks in negative territory. So right across the board, we've got negativity so far this morning. So any bounces to the upside will likely have to be taken lower. Now, obviously, my trade of choice was Bitcoin, but Bitcoin seems to be fairly resolute that it wants to hold on to its gains. Now, let's just check out gold as well. I'm interested in just about everything short against the dollar. And these other ones aren't really moving, and it's all going to be about why the market is moving in the way that it's moving. Does gold potentially get a little bit of upside? Stuck in a range, not really moving. Silver looks a bit more negative, interestingly. And then when we flip to those cryptocurrencies, then we do see just a little bit of movement. I was going to make a point about EasyJet, which I will in a moment. But look at these cryptocurrencies. So Bitcoin, holding on pretty well at this particular stage. Let's have a look on the 4-hour chart here. Yeah, it's holding on pretty well at this particular stage. Nowhere near as desperate as some of the other markets, because it's Bitcoin's still in a sell zone, which is interesting. Whereas when you look at the global equities, they're well and truly past their sell zone. We just talked about the S&P being in a buy zone, and it's the same right across the board. The problem is, as I said earlier, just because something is cheap, it doesn't mean it's too cheap, or in fact, it doesn't mean it's cheap. It just means that it's at a low, and it can go through that low, which we are seeing expressed globally and across the board. Bitcoin potentially needs to form a little bit more to get its head and shoulders pattern, or there's possible that Bitcoin is maybe already there. If this area over here isn't part of the pattern, then it's possible that Bitcoin's already there, and we're actually on top of that right shoulder. This is on a 4-hour. So Bitcoin holds on. Just quickly check the dollar index as well, because the dollar index hasn't moved favorably for me yet, but I still believe in this for a bounce. So sometimes you just got to sit it out and wait, and the dollar index continues to hold on to the 92, around about the 92 handle. It's still managing to hold on. And if we bring this onto the daily charts, the daily chart still possibly has a suggestion that this inverted head and shoulders might have a day or so left in it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Maybe between 11 and 12 make up that left shoulder. And really, you're really into maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So possibly another couple of days with the dollar would give probably perfect symmetry between the right and left shoulder. But Jerome Powell's speech today may start to move the dollar. Who knows? EasyJet is the last one I just wanted to comment on very quickly, mate. And EasyJet, the reason I bring up EasyJet is that I do like travel stocks, and I do believe that that if travel stocks do start to go to do start to move into positive territory, then we won't even see them move. You know, I think that they may just start to take off. It's you know, it's possible that happens. Where's EasyJet? Why has that come out at a strange price, I wonder? Well, I can tell you that this isn't the price of EasyJet, so I don't know why that's minus. I'm not quite sure what that is showing me there. It's not, you know, they're not going to give you free EasyJet and £7.20, so I'm not sure why it's a minus 70.72 there. Let's see if it's still something that can be analyzed. Oops. No, I think it can. I think it can. So the area that I'm looking on EasyJet, in the same way that we've looked at HSBC, the area that I think is interesting on EasyJet is because on the weekly chart we are right on top of this trend line. Now the price of EasyJet jet isn't you know, negative £7.05. It is £5.20. I think it is about £5.24 for a share in EasyJet. No, actually, it's down at £5.05 at the minute. So it's actually through this particular level. So is EasyJet you know, good value down here? I think it is. I think between 5 and 6, it is good value. It doesn't mean that we should be jumping in yet, but it's still something that's on my watch list to try and get into, because I would like to trade EasyJet. It seems to me just across, you know, right across the board, we've got risk off at this moment in time. The Nasdaq is something that, of huge interest because of the massive move that we've had to the upside, and the massive move that we've had to the upside would mean that you know, a decent move to the downside would potentially be in the offing. Timing would be a little bit off now, but actually I'm you know, I'm looking at the Nasdaq and going, well, these stocks were good value all the way down here, and potentially the last throw was there. So that, you know, to my mind, they're going to be great value if they come down to, if the Nasdaq falls around about 10% over the course of the next month or so, then I'm quite happy to look for long opportunities. I don't want to trade this one short, mate. I don't know why, because it looks pretty obvious, doesn't it, that we should be looking at short equities and short Nasdaq and this, that, and the other. But I'm just not that interested. You know, I'm kind of more interested in allowing this to drop and see if I can get in on a long rather than trading this one lower. I think the Nasdaq as a and it's not really like me in many respects. You know, I like to trade the moves that are on offer, but I just don't know. I think there's potentially easier opportunities, but in saying that, certainly looking right now that me waiting for Bitcoin to drop is dead money, because the Nasdaq in that particular period of time has dropped. Well, we can tell you exactly how much it's dropped from the highest point to where we are now. It's already down 6%, and from where I am in a Bitcoin, which, you know, I am a seller of Bitcoin. I've got a position in Bitcoin short, and from where that one is, it's about flat. So there's already 6% that has been left on the table in some respects.
Take profit, guys, on the pound. Take profit now.
Oh, off and running, are we, mate?
Yeah, the market seems to have a firm opinion this morning.
It does, doesn't it? Look at gold is on its way as well. But there's a little bit of waiting going on, mate. But yeah, as I say, it's the cryptocurrencies that I'm really interested in, and I'm interested in those for a sell-off.
Cool. Okay, I'm just amending my stop loss here on the pound, which now I got about 17 pips out of that one instead of 15, which is good. So I'll move my stop loss to 129.53.
Fantastic. Simon, noted, mate. Noted. Now, I don't know how we're going to run this exactly, but you do your thing, mate, and then we're going to come back to what Simon's talking about in a second.
All right, mates, will do. I'll take over and go through a few things, in particular those two questions from Sino, which were related to Euro CAD short and dollar CAD short as well. I think it was. Euro Aussie short and dollar CAD short. Okay, as I say, you should have taken your first profit on the pound trade at 29.21. I actually took mine at 29.19 because it went a little bit further. And my stops are now, as I said, at, and I forgot what I said, 29.52 by the look of it, or 52.7, close enough. Okay, so that one's away. Awesome. Let's see if that can keep going. Euro Aussie. Okay, Euro Aussie. I actually went through, this is on my watch list, and I want to range trade it. Funny thing that. That's kind of what I like to do. Reason. Well, let's go back a little bit in time and see what levels we're playing with here. So the two levels I've got on my chart are 167, let's call it 167 and 161. So a fair bit of room to maneuver here, but you can also see that there is a confluence between the ascending trend line or support trend line and this horizontal level through here. Okay, it's not an exact price, but to me the confluence is kind of there. So this is the point where we expect something to happen, bounce or break. My money would be on a bounce at the moment, to be fair, given the strength of that support level. So I'm really not thinking short at the moment. That's a much bigger picture, though. Of course, we can always have a little bit of an intraday price action that gives us the opposite to our bias. So that's not an issue. But what is an issue is we're now back inside this range here that you can see. And that becomes, therefore, a range trading opportunity to me, which means that I'll trade from the bottom to the top, not the top to the bottom, until we get to the top, of course. And then it becomes quite the reverse. I also see a lovely little tweezer bottom sitting here on the lower time frames. This is a 4-hour chart, so it is significant. It's also at a support level, albeit recent support level, but you've seen as we went wider on those charts that it's also a significant support level. So for that reason, I wouldn't be looking for shorts here. Certainly not on the bigger time frames. If there's something on the smaller time frames, and I think you mentioned H1, Sino, I see where you're coming from. You're probably looking at a break and retest of the daily pivot, and I kind of get that. What I would be questioning would be where we are in proximity to the most recent support levels, and that wouldn't be it for mine. That's probably it in there. So if we're going to trade small time frames, we need to have a look at the small time frame snapshot, and that's giving me support directly underneath and a whole mess of resistance on top. I still can't get the long bias out of my mindset here, because what I do see is the potential for this to break short, yes, but go to where? Not very far is the answer to my question. And I like to answer my own questions. So I'll be looking for a higher low in this vicinity here. If it does break short, then I'd be looking for price to get back above the trend line or trade line in my case, and indeed the daily pivot and the weekly pivot, and then come back and retest that level. And then I think there's a long on offer I'm really not thinking short at the moment. Would that change at all? Maybe, but I don't really see it. I always want to go short off a false break of resistance, and that false break of resistance takes us to new highs, which of course then brings this into a higher low category off the even inverted head and shoulders, if you like, but certainly a double bottom. So I can't get the short into my mindset right now. Can it go there? Of course it can go there, but I don't see it going too far past here. So that would be my answer to Euro Aussie. Dollar CAD was the other one, and I'll have a dollar CAD chart here somewhere. There we go. Certainly it's easy to say now I don't want to go short after we've seen this candle. But let me have a look and see what you were looking at. Again, if we have a look at the bigger picture, I'll go medium picture. We can definitely see that price has got no intention of moving away from the monthly pivot too far, and hasn't had since the fourth trading day of the month or something thereabouts. We seem to be stuck in a very, very tight range here, and until that breaks, I'm probably not a massive fan of trading it. That said, what would be available on the smaller time frames may well still be pertinent. And again, what I see here is, it's an ugly bottom. It's a big bullish engulfing bar, higher, 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 low, higher, high, higher, low, and there it went into a mess. The mess that we're currently experiencing, again, probably needs to break before I get too excited. But again, that said, this is a pretty cool area because you can see it's been rejected, and that's the kind of thing that we look for. The problem I would have in keeping this on the charts now would be that it's been broken twice. So it's been broken once, turned into a false break, came back, didn't quite touch the trade line, which makes it a little bit awkward if you're trying to trade it long. And that's been a little bit sticky in here, as you can see. So I've really got to move that now and get these above the trade line, because they're now invalidated, or the trade line's invalidated. And to do that, that's about my only option, I would have thought. Maybe I could go down to here. It'll be very much the same thing. But that's now your trade line, and we're still stuck in this area. So I think it's pretty tough to be calling this either way on a 4-hour chart. So I'd like to see a break of resistance, retest of resistance, or false break of resistance, break of support, retest of support, or false break of support back in here, long, back under here, short. So it's a toss of a coin for me at the moment. And I don't see an easy way out. But the hourly chart that you were looking at is, kind of messy. I can see a trade line coming through here. And now that becomes interesting because it's been broken. And that's what I was looking for. So we want to see a breakout, and either to be proven true or false. True by a failure to come back underneath here. False by an absolute determination to come back underneath here. But it's going to be really tricky if it does that, because you've got pivots all over the place. This is a bit of a junk pile. So yeah, bit tough to trade, mate, I reckon, at the moment. Good luck if you get the direction right. But, again, the best way for me to trade short is definitely off resistance rather than down at these support levels. So that's those two. Let's have a bit of a catch up with the 3 trades that we entered last week. 4 trades, actually, that we entered last week. 3 of them pretty damn good, and 1 of them not so flash. The one that we really posted our high hopes on was Swissy yen, and we're going pretty much gangbusters on that. And today doesn't look to be any worse, or in fact, it looks to be a whole lot better at the moment. That could, of course, change. It's very, very early days. But we've been through TP1. You might consider a TP2 now. because we are at a fairly decent support level that you should be able to see through here. It's been support here, resistance, 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 resistance. So I reckon that if you haven't taken a TP2 at this point, then that would be probably a fairly good idea. I've got my stops at entry on this one. And I will be looking to take something off here as well. That will be the last time I'll take something off until we take a real good look down at the lower prices here around the 109 level. So that is Swissy yen. Had a few mates. Dollar yen. Dollar yen also going fairly well for us. I haven't moved my stops to entry here. Rather, I've just moved them above these lows and the weekly pivot. I'm pretty confident this won't come back, but we're talking dollar yen here, and this could do anything, frankly. Again, I've only taken TP1 here, haven't taken TP2, but I'm safe in the trade because even if we came back and our stop loss was hit, only having taken the third off here at TP1, we would still be in profit if that were to be the worst case scenario. So, well, there's the level that we've got to get through, ladies and gentlemen. If we get through this level, 104.50-ish, as I've got it there, I think we're in pretty damn good spot on dollar yen. And this is one of the hardest things to catch on the planet, I reckon, dollar yen. So I'm pretty stoked that we are in it and hope it can continue to go south and south big time. Now, I made a mistake on euro yen, which has not yet hit TP1. TP1 is around about 21 pips away. I expect this momentum should carry it down there. So hopefully you can do that. What did I do? I was, I don't know what I was doing. I moved my stops to it. To entry, and I've been taken out. So I didn't even get a TP1 on this. Would I like to re-enter it, and would I like to correct my my rash, foolish, ridiculous moving of my stop loss? Yes, I would, most definitely. Unfortunately, that can't be the case, and I'll have to wait for another opportunity on this. But hopefully you guys who should still be in this, certainly if you're in the shows last week, you should be in this, and TP1 beckons not too far away, but you are at DS1. So just be aware of that as well. The only other trade that we were in is Aussie Swissy, and we've been in for how long now? We got in down here. So that's about a week ago. So it was last Monday. Must have been last Monday that we got into this. Sadly got into this, as it turns out at this stage anyway. But whilst ever we've got this range intact, well, kind of intact, this high is the key. If we were to close above this high, I think I'd actually close the trade in a losing position. We've more than made up for that on the yen pairs, so I would have no hesitation in doing that if there's a close above here. So you'd be probably losing about half your stake if that were to be the case. But so far, so good today. This looks like it might want to come back into the range. And if it did, then we may even see this return to profit at some stage. Hopefully that will be the case. Now, in terms of today, not that confident of getting into the market. We've already had a look at Euro Aussie, and my absolute penchant, if you want, or bias, is to trade this range, as I said before. No entry there yet, but I'm looking to trade it long on the back of a higher low. This may well be the higher low. That will make it a little bit difficult, however, for me to trade, because I don't trade bull bars long as a rule, unless they are a decisive break of a trade line, which of course is what we entered on Euro Yen late last week. So I've got to wait on this one, and I, as I said before, would much prefer to see a black candle here that looks something maybe like that, or like that, or like that. If I saw that sitting over here as a standout higher low, then that's exactly what I would like to trade. The other way to do it is let it break out of here. If I don't get the bar I want, come back above the pivots, retest that level, then we've got a long on our hands, which would then be potentially a higher low in any case. So that's Euro Aussie. Euro CAD, we have not. I heard people shudder when I said that word, Euro CAD, because we've been in this, I think, 6 times already, and yet to show any reasonable profits on it. I think we've had about 3 or 4 TP1s, and I think a TP2 at one stage. My memory doesn't serve me terribly well. But I see here an interesting formation, and I'm not sure if you can see it on the daily chart as clearly as I do. If I go a bit tighter, maybe you can. Might even be better on the 4-hour chart. Yeah, maybe. Pen. My kingdom for pen. Okay, so this is probably not as significant or easy to capture on a 4-hour chart, but to my mind, it is definitely in play. So what I've just drawn there is an ascending triangle. Now, popular theory would have this breaking to the high side more often than it doesn't. I would contend that this is a range of some sort. And the way, as you guys, if you've been in the room for any period of time, would know, when I hit the top of a range, I'm not looking to trade long. Rather, I'm looking to trade short. And that is the case right now on EuroCAD. Apart from it being my long-term bias, it is also, again, the way that I like to trade: bounce off the top, go to the bottom, bottom to top, etc., etc. So what do I need to trade this? Well, on a smaller time frame, a lower high coinciding with the trade line, or on this chart, the 4-hour chart, a lower high. A trade line coming on this chart will be some time off. So I'd still be just looking for a lower high with maybe a candle looked like that one. If that were sitting, maybe we come down here first and then go back to that area and see that sitting there, then I get the candle that I want to trade, but not before. The other way, of course, as always, is to play the false break. So out, back under, retest, high risk entry there, more conservative entry there, taking profit, of course, at the bottom of the range, which is the triangle or trend line, call it what you want. It's one and the same thing. But that's my my analysis on EuroCAD, and of course nothing's changed. Well, actually that's not true. Something has changed since we first noticed the formation of Batman's mask, which was going to be this scenario. So bat ear 1, bat ear 2, bat face, and bat mask down here. That's getting a very distorted look about it as Batman's ear. Oh, maybe it doesn't. Maybe he does have an ear over here and he should have had an ear over here. Maybe that's what the problem is. So we've got an ear. Okay, I can live with that. And those of you who are suddenly calling the ambulance for me, it's okay. It's not that big a deal. I think imagery is far easier to follow than just me talking. And and although it is somewhat macabre at times, well, not macabre, but weird, I'll put it that way, it does give you an image. And if you've got an image, you don't have to remember the candle pattern, then you know exactly what's going on. So again, what I'm looking for here is probably a lower high off these highs, Love to see these pivots taken out and the lower high occur here. Then we can look for the short. But the bigger picture is still pretty clear to me that we're going in a short direction. Now, speaking of things that go bump in the nights, or that we've been trying to trade successfully for the longest time, here's another, and it's euro pound. And again, I still have a bearish bias on this cross. Similar type of reason, but not that I see Batman at the moment. Can't even see Robin, but it doesn't matter. What I do see is a very, very strong resistance level. Now, when you reach these levels, we're obviously looking for one of two things to happen. We're looking for them to break, or we're looking for them to bounce. What I'd be looking for here is something like that to take. This is a monthly chart, mind you. Something like that to happen. So, as always, get outside of that area, break it, then come back underneath it, and give us the lower high that we seek always. This is interesting. I hadn't seen that before. That's a daily chart. Because I haven't looked at the charts, yeah, okay, that'll probably do. If we were to sneak back under there and put in a retest, then that becomes a trade automatically. But we've also got the opportunity here now on the daily chart for this to rally up to maybe even this high again. Maybe it's even there now, and then give us the lower high that we seek. Again, I'll be looking for a candle that looks something like that, even something like that would do, sitting in this vicinity here. And that then would be a short for me. I don't want to trade it short just as a bounce. I want the confirmation to happen first, and that lower high would be the confirmation that I seek. Finally, the watch list today, as it stands, includes this one, which is Kiwi US dollar. Now, I've already got $1 trade in the market at the moment. That's free trading, so I don't have a problem with putting one. And I'm trying to make this one per week only that includes the US dollar until we actually get a clear breakout of the US dollar index, which is just trying its hardest to get above 93 handle, but it cannot do it. I'll answer your question in a second about the pivot LT. But yeah, this is exactly the same as I've just described on everything else. They're all the same, and pretty much going to be the same trade. Again, we're at a strong resistance level. Maybe there's a little bit to go. And if that were to be the case, then happy days. We would then potentially get a false break of our resistance trend line. The one thing here that is a little bit off-putting, if you like, is this support trade line, or it's actually a trend line as well as a trade line. So I'd like to see that break. This area here where the confluence is would be absolutely superb. I don't even see that happening this week on a daily chart, so we're probably a little bit ahead of ourselves. That wouldn't stop me, however, from trading this short if it does set up. But this is definitely prime time over here. If you can find that level, which is, I can probably even name it for you. Let's call it 67.80. If we were to find something in this vicinity that looks even resembles a lower high or a slingshot setup, then that's where I want to get short under here. I think this will be prime time. The issue that we may have is that we've got the RBNZ statement coming up on Wednesday. So that is going to put a fly in the ointment, one would suspect, but it may not. It depends on what the market wants to do pre that announcement. And I'll be looking for that as well, because we are at a strong resistance level. Why would we break out of here now is my question. And I really don't see an answer to that. So I'm a massive bear, to be honest, from a technical point of view, until maybe we get down to this level here, which would look interesting as maybe an inverted head and shoulders. So I can totally see this area as a profit-taking exercise. Been support through here, support here. 62.5 is about the level. That gives us about 500 pips from where we are. So if we can get into that at reasonably low risk, then I'm a happy chappy. Kiwi US dollar, much will depend on what the RBNZ says on Wednesday, however. What does the pivot do to range trading considerations? Okay, it's a pretty loaded question. Let's go to a range that includes the pivot, shall we? Like there. So this is Euro Aussie, right? What the pivots tell me are three things. They tell me the likely direction of the day, and that is dependent on where price is in relation to the daily pivot. They tell me what the current trend is, and that is if they're all in sequence. So the daily, the weekly, and the monthly are all in sequence. They tell me that. And they also tell me if the market is overbought or oversold. Now, that's a whole different lesson, but I use those three indicators or the pivots as indication of those three things. So they're very, very important to me. And in a range trading situation, when I see the pivots very, very close together, in particular the daily pivot and the weekly pivot, it really says to me that price has got not too much interest in moving away from that at this point in time. And that if you use logic there, the reason they're together is because the market's not going anywhere. So it's kind of one brings about the other. If I was to look to trade away from that now, away from that magnet, if you like, I would do so with far less risk in my mind than I would if it were otherwise. So in other words, if the weekly pivot was a long way from the daily pivot, I would be okay with trading towards the weekly pivot, because there's only one of two things that can close that gap. One is price goes towards it and therefore drags the daily pivot up with it, which it did on Thursday and Friday of last week. The other is the end of the week, where it just changes anyway. So absolutely crucial to me is where the pivots are and where price is in relation to the daily pivot, for instance, where price is in relation to a pair of pivots that are either close together or far apart. So very, very important to me. And it's something that I do teach, because it's probably, well, as you know, it's the only indicator that I use are the pivots. And for that reason, the daily pivot is gold to me. It saves me much more money than I can ever dream of, just by knowing where it is in relation, or where price is in relation to that daily pivot. Really does do wonderful things for me. So it's a very broad subject, to be honest, but they are very, very important to me in all situations, but certainly in range trading situations. Right, mate. I've approached a few levels that interest me. Whether I'm willing to put any money on the table at the moment is debatable. Yeah, I do see some interest. I reckon by UK session, this double top may have given us something. Also by UK session, this trend line or trade line may have given us something. Sorry, US session. So yeah, I'm got a few possibilities coming up later, but nothing right now apart from our little pound breakout trade, which is still going.
Great stuff, mate. Well, yeah, we're probably moving on to looking at the US session, and in the US session, I will be bringing everybody a stock that I'm quite interested in, and just showing you sort of how I analyze it. Now, it is something that we talked about a few weeks ago, so this will be something familiar to those that were in the US session a few weeks ago. Well, I won't say too much more than that, but we will be looking at a specific stock, and I'm just going to show you the route to finding that particular stock, and what I have done to kind of get there as well. and touching on, as I say, what we talked about on a few weeks ago. So aside from that, mate, I'm in a wait and see mode. I'm waiting on that dollar, which is strengthening. Actually, the dollar's starting to come up, which is starting to look a lot better for me. Dollar comes up, then I suspect that we're going to get a drop in gold, drop in silver, drop in Bitcoin, drop in Ethereum, potentially a continued drop in US equities. I see that that VIX is starting to pick up as well. So looks like a down day for stocks. Looks like a down day potentially for commodities. Might actually see some breath into that US dollar, which means actually the dollar Swissy would be one that I'd be interested in shorting as well. But quite liking the look of the price action at the minute, mate. I'm pretty comfortable with what's going on, and I'm hoping finally that my theory of that dollar strength actually starts to come to fruition in the next couple of days. But yeah, aside from that, we're going to be looking at a stock later on, and continue to look at these different things up against the dollar as well.
Yeah, yen trades are looking pretty good too, mate. Everything's going nicely south here for us.
Yes, looking decent, mate. Decent start to the week, I think. If we are already in trades,
we are indeed. So yeah, let's just nurse them along and see how we go.
Sounds good, mate. That sounds good.
Rightio, guys. Thank you for your company, Angel. Thank you so much for looking after us. We do need nursing. You know, we're really crap at doing what we do in answering questions. So thanks so much for that, and everybody who contributed with their questions. We hope we answered them successfully for you. We'll be back on this very same channel in 4 hours and 25 minutes from now, and we will preview the US session, and it looks like there may be some action coming up. So we'll see you then, guys.
Yep, see you then, or we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye for now. Bye, Angel.